Hi guys, Jordan from P&P Campers. Just going to be doing a handover video on this Burstner A-Class motorhome. It's a 690G, which is an Ixeo model. So A-Class motorhome on the Fiat Ducato chassis. So this one is on the automatic as well. So really nice high spec throughout the vehicle. Being a Burstner, which is, in my opinion, one of the best brands there are, the quality and the build of it is sort of second to none really. It's fantastic throughout. So what I'll do is I'll start under the bonnet. I'll then work my way all the way around the outside of the van, and then I'll show you all the way through the inside after that. So being an A-Class, it's got a slightly different style of bonnet as opposed to like your standard sort of coach built chassis there. So you open it up with the same pulley inside the passenger door here. When you lift it up, you've got this little handle that latches in over here, and that then allows you to hold it up in place up there. You get loads of space in here. In comparison to a lot of A-Class motorhome cabs, this is actually a good amount of space. So over on the left hand side, we've got your washer fluid, power steering fluid, engine coolant and brake fluid at the top just here. You've then got your engine oil filling point just here, and engine oil dipstick just down here to the right of that. So because you've got air conditioning in the van, you have got a little bit of air conditioning information on this white sticker here. And the touch-up paint for the vehicle actually isn't that colour that's written there. So because it's actually been completely changed, you know, at the factory obviously, basically ignore this sticker just here, because that paint code that's there, 249, is actually a white paint colour. So yeah, I wouldn't worry too much about that. That's more of the, because it's an A-Class, they build the entire body on top of just a chassis. So when the chassis was made, it would have been made for a Fiat 249 colour, but obviously the whole back end of the vehicle has been changed, so ignore that little sticker there. There's one chassis plate here, but the actual one that you need to look at is just inside the habitation door, the one that actually says Burstner on it, just down there. So that's the most up-to-date chassis plate that you've got for this vehicle. And then the last thing under the bonnet really is that you've got, over on the right hand side, this little terminal here under the cover is a positive terminal for the engine battery. So if you needed to jump start the van in the future, which hopefully you won't need to, but if you did, positive terminal there, and then you can basically earth from anywhere that you can earth from. So probably this little thing here is decent for an earth, but basically that's where you can jump start the vehicle if you need to. And that's it really. That's about all there is under the bonnet. So if I carry on to the near side, if I open up the passenger door, you can see first of all we've got the blinds on the passenger door here, which meet up with a little magnet on the right hand side. Just be nice and gentle with these. They can be a little bit brittle, but work really well. Just inside the passenger door up here is where the bonnet release handle is that I was telling you about. So that's how you would open up the bonnet. We've got a little light switch here, which does something when you're when the ignition's on, I believe. Got a little switch there. Yeah, so you got a little light switch just there. The blinds go obviously all the way around each door, each window, sorry, not door. So you can use all of those as and when you need to. Loads of lights all the way through here, to be honest. There's a couple of little spot lamps at the bottom there, little reading lights down here, so you can adjust those as and where you need to. Something else that's quite important is this little area down here. Now you don't have to do anything with this. I'm just pointing out to you that this is your power supply unit. So this is basically like the heart of the vehicle. So everything electronic goes into this box and then gets sent around to wherever it needs to go to. So this is where all of the electronics come from. And so if you ever needed any access to any of that, then you can have a little look in there. Same goes really. Your leisure batteries are underneath the driver's seat there. Okay. So if you ever needed any access to anything electronic, the majority of it is down here underneath these front seats. Both of the front seats are swivel seats. So you've got a little handle on the side just there, the one at the bottom, and that will swivel the seat 180 degrees to wherever you want it to go to. Same for this one here. And I'll show you the rest of the actual cab when we get around the other side. Diesel filling point just here you will need one of the keys to get this to open. You can lock it up if you want to as well, but that is your diesel filling point just there. Not to be confused with the freshwater tank. Please don't do that. So your fresh tank is this one just here. A couple of things. They give you the option of this little valve here that you can take off, little cover. You can actually get your hand in there and clean the tank out physically. So if you wanted to do that in the future, you can do. Really good access point just there. You've also got a little grey valve at the top just here, which when you open it up, will drain all of the water out from the tank, apart from 20 litres. So you'll always be left with a little bit of water in the tank in order to do things like flush the toilet and whatever else. Okay, so that's your main drain off point just there. If you want to drain it fully, you can do that by lifting up these two tabs down here. I'll explain this one to you in a minute, but you can lift that tab up just there and it will start draining out all of the water. Okay, obviously your filling point is this one up here at the top, and you can probably just about see in there your water pump, which sits inside the actual tank itself. So that's what you'd call a submersible water pump, because it's physically submersed inside the tank in the water. Okay, right, other things in this locker is your electric hookup point. So your hookup point's there. They give you this little cutout in the bottom of the locker so that you can have the hookup plugged in and have the cable running out through here whilst this locker is completely closed and locked. So your electric hookup point's just there. You've also got your boiler drain off point. Okay, so this is an automatic boiler drain off, and essentially what that means is that if the temperature inside the van gets down below about 6 degrees, then it will start dropping out the water from the boiler automatically. Okay, so in other words, you need to make sure that you keep your eye on this to make sure that your boiler hasn't dropped all of its water out when you go to use it. Okay, so if you want to drain it out manually, twist this valve just here, and when I do that, you'll see that this little blue button will push out. So if I do that now, there you go, we've got water coming out under the van. And so to put that back to how it was, twist this back to how it was and push the button back in. And now we don't. So that's how you would use the boiler drain off point, but just make sure that you keep your eye on that just in case it has dropped itself out over the winter. Okay, right, the other thing that you've got on the inside of this locker is this little key here. All right, now the key is for your wastewater drain off point, which sits underneath just over here to our right. So if you wanted to drain out the waste tank, it will come out from here, and we need to put this key, get the correct one, put the key on here, and then twist it whichever way it will go, which is to the right. All right, so twist it clockwise to open up the valve, anti-clockwise to close it off. Okay, so that's how you would drain out your waste tank, and the little key for that is just here inside the door. So that's a really important little locker there, and it, you know, sort of contains the majority of the things that you need to use sort of like day to day. Okay. Right, next locker is the gas locker. You've actually got a twin gas flow refillable system in here. So this is a really nice thing to have, especially if you're going to go on the continent, if you're going to go through Europe or anything like that. The LPG side of things is considerably cheaper than buying just the gas bottles, and it's really easy to get hold of over there. It's a little bit tricky over here, I must admit. It's not the easiest thing in the world to get hold of, but there are plenty of petrol stations that do it still, so it's not impossible whatsoever. So in the gas locker itself, you've got two valves on the top of it, well, one valve on the top of each bottle, the yellow one just here. So anti-clockwise around to the left will turn the gas bottle on. We do that on both of these here, anti-clockwise to turn it on. Okay, I always recommend that you just go all the way until you can't go any further. That way that when you go back to the vehicle to turn the gas off, you can't go the wrong way. You can only go one way, which then you know is clockwise to go off. Now you need to make sure that you turn the gas off before you start driving. That's like the most important thing that I can tell you. The very last thing that you want if you have a crash is 30 millibars of propane pumping out into the vehicle. Okay, so just bear that in mind. Please turn the gas off before you start driving. Other things in here, the only other thing you need to know about really is that you've got a little changeover valve at the top just there. So basically you can leave the changeover valve in whatever position you want depending on which bottle you want to use. If you only want to use one side, you can just choose that side. If you want to use both at the same time, you can leave it in the middle. It's again, it's up to you. Okay, so that's it for the gas locker, apart from the fact that you've got a refill point just down here. So when you come to filling the bottles back up, in around to the left to release this little cap, and then you've got your filling point. Now in the UK, this is basically just a little bayonet fitting. So it's really simple. You just push it in and round and then press go, basically. But if you're going to go abroad, if you're going to go to any different countries, pretty much every country has got its own different adapter. So say for France or Italy, they've both got different adapters, Spain as well. So you will need to buy the adapters or get hold of the adapters to go onto those if you are going to fill up in a different country. But it's pretty standard stuff, really. That's it. So that's the gas locker. To the right of that, we've got, shut this down a second, external hot and cold water point. So this is basically a standard, it's almost like an air fitting. So you just push it in and it clips over. So you push it in, clips over, turn your little switch on, and then change the temperature depending on what you want. Okay, so it's really as simple as that. Plug it in, switch it on, choose your temperature. All right, so that's your external hot and cold water point, you know, for shoes, dogs, whatever it might be, on the outside of the van. Now, these two vents just here, just in case you were wondering, aren't really anything important, but they are access to the back of the fridge. So if you ever needed any access to that, which you really shouldn't need, then you can do that from there. It's more so for us when we're doing our servicing or fault finding or whatever. But I'm just pointing out to you that's what they are. Other thing, just before I forget, this little vent just here is your heating and hot water vent, so your boiler vent. So if you have got the boiler lit up, make sure that you don't go touching this vent because it will get quite hot. And also don't worry if you get a little bit of condensation forming and it starts dripping down. That's perfectly normal. It's just because it's just because it's hot inside and cold outside. It's just normal, just like a boiler at home. So in the back we've got a couple of things. So there's a few other bits on the other side which I'll show you in a minute. So leveling chocks. So if you obviously previous owners left these behind, these aren't cheap, so it's a really nice thing for them to left. So you can use those if you want to, just to level yourself up on whatever campsite you might be on. You've got awning winder, which is the one just here on the right. Steady winder, which is this one here. And then the other one there is actually a winder for a bike rack. So you've got a wind down Fiamma bike rack there as well. I think it's Fiamma, might be Omnistore. But anyway, so you've got all the winders there, all the relevant winders for everything inside the garage here. Obviously we have done a habitation check and gone over everything and made sure that everything's all fine, which it is. So it all went through, no problems at all. If I go across the back just here, we can see at the very top we've got a reversing camera just down there below the Burstner centre brake light, and a tow bar down here at the bottom as well. Inside the offside garage we've got the factory fitted carpets just here, and a couple of extra bits. So this black box here is the original jack and wheel brace kit, which would have originally been sat underneath the passenger seat. So because they've changed it out for all of the electronics, they put them in the back just here. So that is all just there. And that's it really. That's about all there is in the garage. So these two bits just here are, top one is your external gas point. So if you want to use the external gas, you can just plug a bullfinch fitting into there and then twist this little valve around. So that'll be, it's really simple. As long as you got your gas on in the locker, you'll be able to use it from here. I'll lock those back up in a minute. The one below it is an external TV socket and aerial socket there. So if you want to use that, you can use that if you want to. It's not everyone's cup of tea. Most people nowadays will just use the aerial, which is on the roof. So it's a bit easier. And the last locker I'm going to show you is the gas locker. Not the gas locker, what am I talking about? It's the toilet locker. So this is a standard Thetford toilet cassette. As I mentioned earlier, you've got a freshwater flush on here, so you do need to have a little bit of water in the fresh tank if you want to use the flush system. But basically, to use the cassette, we lift up on the front just here and pull the cassette towards us. Once it's in this position here, you will then be able to take it all the way out and walk it to wherever you need to go to. Okay? All you need to know from there is that you twist this little piece open just here and physically drain it out from this little cap. When you're physically draining it out, you need to be holding down this little orange button at the back, which will release a little bit of pressure, allowing it to come out much easier. Once you've emptied the cassette out, use this cap just here as a measuring cup for your blue fluid, about 1 cap's worth normally, back inside the cassette. Give it a little swoosh around and then push it all the way back in, making sure that your orange tab goes over this little lip. All right, so that you can't pull it back out again. And that is it, ready for using again. So I'll just double check, I'm not missing anything out. No, okay. So, step just here is an electronic one, obviously, so you can push it up to have it go back in, back down again to have it come out. The Burstners, the more modern Burstners, the majority of them has got this extra wide door, so you probably can't tell on the video, but this door is super wide, so it's really easy to get in and out of. You have also got a full-size fly screen across here, so you can keep the door completely open without the worry of anything getting in there. Okay, so because this is an A-class motorhome, this is what you might call a double-skinned motorhome. Now, what I mean by double-skinned is basically the floor that actually meets the ground outside is this height here. Okay? This height here is the floor that actually meets the ground outside. So if you were to lay underneath the vehicle and touch the floor that's underneath, this is the level of that here. Okay? The fact that it's double-skinned means that you've actually got 2 layers there, and you've got a void of about, I don't know what to say, like 6 inches or so, just here between this floor and that floor. Okay? The massive positive of that is 2 things. One, you get absolutely tons of storage throughout. So you get to go through all in there. There's another one over there as well, which is even more storage in that one. So storage is great. And also it means that you get another layer of kind of insulation. So it's just a bit like a cavity wall in a house. So you've got a little bit of a gap between the first and the second layer. So you've got a cavity inside there, which is going to stop any serious cold coming up into the vehicle. So first thing you notice when you get in is that you've got all of these sort of light switches and things like that. So these all do individual things. Okay. So this little one over here is quite cool. So you can actually press in different areas of the vehicle to turn different areas lights on. So for the time being, I'm just going to basically turn everything on just so that you can see just how many lights there are. There is just LED spot lamps and things all over the place. And, you know, it's just fantastic, really. It looks really good. Okay, so what should I do first? I'll show you through the cab first. Just pop the keys down. Right. So in the cab itself, we have got a super high spec in here. So we've got over on the right hand side, we've got your mirror adjustments, so you can choose which mirror you want to move and then move it around like a little joystick just to move the mirror to wherever you want it to be. As I said earlier, you've got the full cab blinds, so that one comes all the way across to here. You've got that one there as well, so yeah, it just blinds everywhere, so you can really quickly put all of this away. This window here does slide open. And then what we've got, a little bit of storage space inside here. Okay, so to the right of the steering wheel, we have got fog lamps front and rear, headlight adjustments just here, and the mode button is basically just to do with the little screen in the middle there. So just have a little play with that if you want to. Washers and wipers are on the right hand stalk. Lights and indicators are on the left hand stalk. And you've got your speed limiter and cruise control. Okay, so you can have a little play with these if you want to. and cancel, resume, change speed. It's pretty straightforward stuff, so give it a go. Okay, on the steering wheel itself, we've got the volume and mute switch just here. You can answer and decline phone calls from these two over here. Now, the only thing I will say is that I don't hold me to this, but I don't think that's the original radio. If it is, then I apologise, and that's good. But if it's not the original radio, you may or may not find that these buttons don't work anymore, so you might just have to do it on the screen. I'm not 100% on that, I'm just pointing that out. Anyway, so another cool feature of the Burstners, and a couple of other brands, but mainly Burstner, is that they include this little switch just here, which says Radio Navi. So when I turn this on, you'll notice the radio in the middle here switches on and gets power. Okay, now I'm not going to leave it on for too long because I can't really play songs on the video. But long story short, you've got a switch just here which turns the radio on and off in the front. Okay, you might be thinking, well, what's the point in that? Surely it just comes on with the ignition. Yes, it does come on with the ignition, and you can use it like a normal radio, just like any other car. But the point of this little switch here is that actually when you switch this on, it then starts taking its power from the leisure battery so that you can use the radio and not drain the engine battery out. Okay, so if you want to use the radio throughout the vehicle without the engine being running and without the worry of the engine battery going flat, then you can just use that switch just there. And I believe there's a couple of speakers around the vehicle somewhere. There normally is, probably in the very back of the van, so that you can sort of see, actually hear what you're doing. There's a couple of big ones down here, actually. See one there. I think there's another one down here somewhere. But anyway, so that's your leisure battery switch there for the radio if you want to use it without the engine being on or the ignition being on. As I mentioned, you're on the automatic chassis here. So a couple of things to point out. If you haven't used one of these autos before, it's really, really important for me to point out to you that it's a difficult one to explain. So it's not what you might call you might call it a proper automatic gearbox. It is an automatic in the sense that it runs through the gears automatically, and so it works in the same way as an automatic gearbox, but physically it's actually a manual gearbox with an automatic selector on it. Okay, now the reason I'm telling you that is basically that when you have it in the automatic function, if you have it here in automatic, like I said, it will drive, it will change all through the gears properly, but you will realise, or you will notice that there's a bit of a gap between the gears changing. It kind of revs up, changes the gear for you, and then it engages the gear. So it's not like immediate changes like you might get on a proper automatic. The other thing that I'm going to mention about with that, not a problem, it's just that I'm just mentioning it for you, is that because it's not, again, I hate saying proper automatic, but what I mean is like fully automatic. All right, this is what you call like a semi-automatic gearbox. Because it's not a fully automatic gearbox, you also have this other switch just up here above the gear stick. Now, the switch here, basically, I mean, you do have that on some fully automatic gearboxes as well, but the switch there basically tells the gearbox that you're going uphill when you need a little bit more, length in the gears, if you know what I mean. So what it'll do is it'll stop the gearbox from trying to change up the gears too fast. If you're going up a really steep hill, you might need the gears to stay on a little bit longer. So you might need to rev up a little bit higher in each gear before it changes. So that's what that switch there will do. It'll basically tell the gearbox that you're, say, going up a hill, or you've got lots of weight on board or whatever. And it will just allow the gearbox to use up the gears a little bit more before it changes up to the next one. So that's what that switch there does. But other than that, it's pretty straightforward. Only other one thing I will mention on it is that, again, because it's not fully automatic, you don't have the option of the park letter on here. So you notice there's no P on it. Now, with a fully automatic gearbox, when you put it in P, you get a little pin inside the gearbox going across, which physically stops you from moving. All right, it will stop you from rolling forwards or backwards. When you put this gearbox into neutral, it will not stop you from rolling. So every single time you use the neutral on there, on the gear stick, you have to remember to use the handbrake. You will roll off. If you put it in neutral and let go of the brake, you will roll. Okay? So make sure that you use the handbrake when you get out of the vehicle. Okay? The rest of it here is pretty straightforward. You've got your standard sort of heater controls and the air conditioning switch is this one just here to the right. Okay. Your traction control plus button is this one just here. And your downhill ascent assist is that one just there. Okay. Hazard lights. And you can lock and unlock the vehicle from this little button just here if you want to. But that's it. So, as I mentioned, both front seats will swivel round if you want them to, with this little handle just here. Nice and easy. Like that. And obviously, being a proper brand, they do give you the access of walking through into the cab nice and easily. So, just briefly, the layout of the vehicle. So, you've got swivel front seats and a front diner area. The table will move around to wherever you want it to go to. You get two forward-facing seat belts just here, which are proper chassis-mounted over-the-shoulder seat belts. Obviously, full-size window here and here. Single seat just there. Loads of storage throughout the floor. Obviously, you've got your side kitchen just over here to the right with, I think it's a 3-burner. Yeah, 3-burner hob with ignition. Okay. Your sink just there, hot and cold sink there, obviously. Absolutely tons of storage throughout the vehicle in all of these overhead lockers. You've got the overcab bed as well. So this is a manual overcab bed. So you just pull on the handle here towards you and it will allow you to drop the bed all the way down. Please consider the fact that you have to move these seats all the way down before you try and put the bed down. So you've got these little twisty handles on the side. When you twist on the handle, the seat will flop forwards. Okay, so you need to have the seats laying down all the way flat before you be able to bring the bed all the way down. You have got TV and all of the relevant sockets on the left-hand side of it just there. Control panel and the control panel for the boiler are both here, covered up by this nice little cover. Neatly hidden away here, matching the cupboards, you've got the extra large fridge just here, which is a Thetford 3-way fridge, which I'll explain to you in a minute. We've got what you call twin fixed single beds at the back, but you have got the little section here in the middle, which allows you to, if you wanted to have one person sleeping across that way or something, if you were just one of you, then you can do that. But the majority of people will just leave it here as the single beds either side. You've got good access to the underneath of here. There's absolutely loads of storage inside these lockers. I can't get to them at the moment because I've got this little step out. But if you can just push a step back in, and then you've got, I mean, it's like a ridiculous amount of storage. It's absolutely massive, the amount of storage that you get through there. All of your fittings for the outside are all in this little locker down here. So have a little flick through there and you can see external hot and cold water point and etc. So a few little bits and pieces and a load of paperwork for the van inside our little box, little bag there as well. Bathroom to the side here. Good size shower, actually a very good size shower. Yeah, not really much for me to explain in the bathroom. I'll go through that in just a minute, obviously. So what I tend to do is I'll sort of run you through the appliances now, explain to you how they all work, and then I'll pick up on any other little bits and bobs as I go. Now, you have got a solar panel on the roof of this van, which basically goes directly into that EBL box, the power supply unit under this seat. So in other words, you haven't got to do anything with that. You just leave that as it is, and it'll just charge the battery up as you go. Okay, so first things first is the control panel up here behind this little cover. Okay, now when you turn the control panel off by pressing that button just there, everything 12 volt related, so that's all of your lights, water pump, ignitions, things like that, everything 12 volt will be switched off, apart from a couple of the lights down here. Okay, the reason for that is so that you can see what you're doing when you're trying to get in the vehicle. Okay, they're sort of like entry lights. So we'll turn the power on. You can see a couple of the lights come on again, and then if we turn all of these switches back on, we've got all of our lights back on again. So it's as easy as that. Now you can use this little thing here as a little scroller basically to go through your different options on the control panel. So the first one we get to, this one just here, is our leisure battery voltage. So 12.3 in the leisure battery. Next one is the vehicle battery voltage, 12.1. Freshwater level, 0%. Wastewater level, 0%. And the time. We've then got internal temperature, external temperature, and our water pump on and off button. Okay, so it's as simple as that. Now, if you've got the hookup cable plugged in, you have this little light here illuminated, and that'll just be telling you that the hookup is in and working. And this little button just here, I don't believe that'll do anything, because that's more of your, if you had a electronic gas on and off system. So I don't think that one there will do anything, but there you go. So that's the control panel, really simple. Very, very quick to flick through your battery voltages and water levels. Okay, now we can see here our fresh tank is completely empty. So when I try and do what I'm going to explain to you in a minute, it probably won't work, but I will try my best to show you through it. So that's the control panel. Now, the first thing that I tend to mention after that is the water system. Now, the water system in any motorhome is pretty much the same. What you've got is a boiler, which basically the boiler is really, really important to make sure that you've got it set up correctly before you try and use it. Now, what I mean by that is, first of all, to make sure that your boiler has actually got some water in it. Now, the first thing you need to check, if you want to check the boiler's got water in it, is one, make sure that you've got some water in the fresh tank, which we at the moment don't. Okay, so make sure that you've got some water in the fresh tank. Then you can turn your pump switch on, come over to the tap just here, and draw the water through on the hot side. Okay, as I mentioned, I don't know if it's going to work, because I know that I don't have much water in the fresh tank. Okay, so that's actually a really good example. What happened there, right, was that because at the start of the video, when I showed you the boiler drain off point outside, if you remember, there was a little bit of water that came out underneath. Now, having a little bit of air in the system, or a little bit of water that isn't completely full to the top inside the boiler. So let's just say, I mean, the boiler's 10 litres. That's the same with most of these boilers. 10 litres of water inside the boiler. Let's just say I dropped out 200 mils of water outside. Okay, so it wasn't very much. Let's just say that the boiler's got this much left to fill up now before the water will start coming through the tap. So what happened was, when I lifted up the tap just then, it kind of coughed and spluttered and got a little bit of water over the sides, which is just literally the boiler filling itself up to the very, very top. And then just as soon as it started, got to the very top, it then started coming out through the tap like this. Nice and clear, not coughing, not spluttering. A tiny bit of air there, just because I've run out of water now. But long story short, make sure that your water's coming through nice and clearly on the hot side of the tap, and then you'll know that the boiler is completely full. Okay, so that is the only way to make sure that the boiler's full of water. There's no gauge, there's no way of checking it, there's no level indicator. You just have to make sure that the water comes through nice and clearly on the hot side of the tap. That's the only way. Once you've seen the water's coming through nice and clearly on the hot side of the tap, I would also check the cold side. Just go the other way and just make sure that it's coming through on the cold side as well, without coughing and sputtering. And once you've done that, you can just leave that alone. You know for a fact that your boiler's full of water, and you can go ahead and use it however you want to. Okay, the other thing that you might be wondering is, why is it so important to fill the boiler up before you use it? And basically, long story short, if you got a kettle and plugged it into the wall and switched it on and it was completely empty, then you can probably imagine what will happen. It will just burn out, or something will happen to it that you don't want to happen. So it's exactly the same thing with the boiler. If you don't make sure that the boiler, if it's empty and you try and get the water hot, it's just the same as plugging in an empty kettle. So you need to make sure that the boiler's full of water before you start trying to get the water hot. Okay, so just doing that is plenty. That's more than enough that you need to do to check the boiler's full of water. And once you've done that, you can then go ahead and use the boiler however you want to. So speaking of which, the boiler controls are all over here on this left-hand side. So this is your Truma iNet Ready system. And essentially what that means is that everything's here in this one unit. Okay, so first thing I'm going to explain to you is that you've got this little black line up here at the top, which is actually, in my opinion, really, really important. So when there's nothing above the black line, it means that the boiler is not doing anything at all. Okay, nothing above the black line, boiler's off. So we've got heating, hot water, energy selector, fan speed. They are the 4 options that we've got along the top here. The rest of them are just timers, time setting, and settings. So this one just here, heating. Choose a temperature which is higher than the temperature that's inside the vehicle, 14. So we choose anything above 14 and press go. So now you can see you've got some things above the black line there, which is telling me that the boiler is now on and it's doing something. Okay, so the heating's now on, and any of the little circular sort of grey vents that you see around the bottom of the van here is where the heating's going to start pumping out through. Okay, so next one over, the hot water. When I click on that, we've got 3 options: Eco, Hot, or Boost. They are the 3 options that you've got for hot water, so just choose whichever one you want to have on. I find that hot is normally plenty, and it will take about half an hour or so to start getting the water hot. Okay, so now above that black line we can see we've got the heating things flashing and the hot water one flashing. Okay, so the other 2 things that we've now got above the black line is the gas symbol, so that's telling us that the energy that's being used is the gas, and we've got that fan speed just there, which is on low. Okay, so if I scroll over to the energy selector, click on it, it just says gas. So at the moment I don't have the hookup plugged in, but I do have the gas on, so that's the only option that I can use right now is the gas. We've then got mix 1 and mix 2, which is a mixture of gas and electricity at the same time, so either 4 or 8 amps of electric and gas. Electric 1 and electric 2, as you can probably imagine, is just electric on its own, hookup only, 4 or 8 amps again. So if you do have the hookup plugged in and you don't want to use the gas to get the heating and the hot water on, then you can use it on electric only. But as I said, for the time being, I've only got the gas on, so I have to leave it here on gas. Oops. So scroll over to the right hand side here, and I can choose high or eco for the fan speeds. Okay, if you're in a bit of a rush for the heating to start coming around, select high, and vice versa. It's simple as that. Okay, now the other option that you've got on here, sorry about my shaky hand, it's a bit of an awkward position to hold the camera up to. The other option that you've got on this boiler is, if I turn the heating off, go down to, sorry, it's really shaky now, go back to off, press off. So we've still got the hot water one flashing up there because I haven't turned the hot water off, but the heating one's gone off. If I now go back over to this fan symbol, you'll see that it will say, well, once it starts, so we just give it a second to start cooling itself down again because I've had the gas on for a bit on the heating. Basically what it will say, if you don't have the heating on, it will say vent. Let me just give it another minute. When you twist it around, it should say vent. Okay, and when it says vent, and if you press go on vent, what it will do is it will start pumping around cool air around the vent at the bottom. Okay, so you can use it as a vent or you can use it as a fan for the heating. It's up to you. It's only not working at the moment, as I said, because it's just cooling itself down after I've had the heating on. Anyway, so that is the boiler controls just there. Heating, hot water, energy selector, fan speed. Okay, turn the water off for now, because as we saw a minute ago, we haven't got, the boiler's kind of on the brink of being full, so I'll leave that for now. So that's the boiler controls and the control panel. So the 3-burner hob that we've got here, quite simply, ignition switch just down here, and little valves just here to allow the gas through. So nothing clever about this, it's just the same as any household cooker. There you go. The only thing that I would say is it's really important to remember to allow this area here to cool down a little bit before you go putting the glass lid back down. You know, if you've had it on for a few seconds like I've just done there, don't worry about it. That's not really what I mean. What I mean is if you've been using this for cooking on for half an hour or so, or however long, if you turn the gas off and then put the glass lid straight down after you've turned it off, as you can probably imagine, this whole area is going to be like super, super hot. Unfortunately, glass is kind of like kryptonite, is when something's hot on one side and cold on the other. So I've seen it many, many times where these just shatter. They are made obviously to be a little bit stronger and a little bit kind of like, you know, reinforced if you like, but you just have to make sure that you allow it to cool down a bit before you put the lid down. Simple as that. Below that we've got cutlery drawer, a couple of fittings just here. That's actually one of the fittings for external gas, I think. So below that we have got your oven and grill. Okay, so oven and grill, pretty straightforward. Just put this back in a bit more straight. I'll do that in a minute when I've got two hands available. So you got a light which comes on and off with that switch just there, and then the valve here has the ignition built in. So push in and round to the right for the grill. When it eventually goes. In and round to the left for the oven. Sometimes, unfortunately, the grills just do take a little bit of a blow to get in, you know, to get them going. It's very, very normal. Of course, it'll be a little bit temperamental on the video when I'm trying to show you it. But I promise you, it's just one of those things. It's just... I might have to see if we can move that ignition a little bit. It's probably sitting a little bit low at the moment. Let me just try and push it up a touch now. Just now. There you go. Just needed to move the little ignition point a little bit. So yeah, in and round to the right for the grill. And you can actually see the grill at the bottom just there if you want to make sure it's still on. Okay. So yeah, nice and easy on that one. Oven and grill down the bottom. It's not the biggest thing in the world, obviously, but it'll do the job for you. Now below that, we've got your trip switch. So if you do have something plugged in that the vehicle doesn't like, it will trip down here. Okay, so we've got an extractor fan and light underneath the vehicle, just underneath the cupboard just here, not the vehicle. So you can use that if you want to. Behind me, I will show you through into the bathroom. So pretty straightforward in here, to be honest. We've got, you might be wondering why there's two drains in the shower tray. Purely and simply because motorhomes don't always sit on a very, very level surface. So if you do need to, you know, let's just say you're parked up on one side or one angle, the water will run off to one side or the other. So you won't ever get pooling in one side, basically. So it's a nice little thing to have there, quite handy. Now, this is a very clever sort of bathroom. So you've got this little clip over here on the right-hand side. When I push that button in, we can then pull this entire thing over and out of the way like so. So this makes your shower unit absolutely huge, okay? Kind of doubles the size of the shower area. So you've got loads of space in there now. Much, much more than your average shower unit. So the shower itself is a hot and cold tap just here with shower spout just there, which you can obviously move up and down to wherever you want it to go. Okay. And then, as I said, you've got this unit here, which when you go back over the top, or back, sorry, all the way, until that little thing pops back over. Same hot and cold tap here for the sink. Nothing exciting about that. And then we've got your storage inside here. So the toilet is normally the only part that I actually sort of explain properly, because the rest of it's just self-explanatory, hot and cold tap. So you will need your pump switch turned on to use this, but you've got a blue button on the right hand side when I press the blue button, pumps around some flush water. Okay, so that's kind of like your flush fluid in there. To drain the cassette into the toilet, to drain the toilet into the cassette, pull this little handle to the right and it will drain everything down into the cassette. Push it back again to the left, closes the little flap back over, and that's it. It's genuinely all there is to it. Very, very simple. So, the fridge is probably the next thing to explain. If I just check up here. Oh, actually, you have got up here above the fridge, we've got your TV aerial area. So the TV aerial itself, don't worry about the dirt in here, this will be cleaned out. But the TV aerial itself is this one up in the corner. So to actually move the TV aerial, you release the little handle at the top there, the little clasp, and then you can push the aerial up and twist it around to wherever you need to go to. So it's really simple. You've then got a TV aerial booster, which has got a little switch on the top, like so, and it will light up green if you've got a good signal. So basically right now, I wouldn't even have to move the aerial because you've got a good signal there. Okay, switch that off when you're not using it to stop any battery drains, and that's it. So the fridge, you got a little curtain just here, which you might find is very slightly in the way. So if I just lift that up out of the way, you can open it up fully. So freezer door comes down like so. So that's your full-size freezer. You've also got, just in case you didn't know what it was, you've got a little blue thing in here, which you can push to one side or leave open. Now what that'll do is it will allow the fridge door to latch a bit further open. Okay, and basically what that does is it basically leaves a very, very small gap around the seal of the door and stops all the bad smells from building up inside. So have a little go with that if you want to. So the fridge itself, pretty straightforward one. It's a sort of industry standard large fridge. So we turn it on with this switch just here, and you'll see the little screen comes to life just here. Now what it will do is it will choose the one that it thinks is correct straight away. So gas is probably the last one that was used actually. All right, so it will choose that one there, and we can see by pressing this little button here, it will tell us what the fridge is doing and how it's doing it. So we've got the temperature selector there, so it's on full power now, and we're using gas. Okay, so if I wanted to change the energy, I'll press and hold on this button here till it starts flashing at us. And then I can use these buttons here to scroll through our different options. So we've got gas, 12 volt electric, 240 volt electric or electric hookup, and automatic. So as you can probably imagine, the automatic option will choose one of the three options for you automatically. So it's chosen the correct option straight away. It realizes there's no hookup plugged in. It realizes there's no engine running, and it realizes that the gas is switched on. So it's chosen gas. Okay. So if you want to use it on automatic, you can leave it as it is and it will just do the whole thing for you. But I will explain to you how to use it manually as well, just in case you ever have a problem with the automatic option. Hopefully that you won't, but you know, there you go. So the gas is the only option that we've got, as I mentioned a minute ago, because the hookup's not in and the engine's not running. So we have to use it on the gas at the moment. Okay. The other options that we have, the 12 volt electric, the little battery symbol here. When I click on that, it'll give us a fault code and start flashing red. That's because the 12 volt electric option has to have the engine running in order to work. So the only time that you would ever use the 12 volt electric is for when you're driving to wherever you're going to. Okay, all it does is hold the temperature inside the fridge that you've already got into it before you leave, and it keeps it cold whilst you're driving. It's not powerful enough to get the fridge cold by itself, so you do have to make sure that you pre-cool it either on the mains or on the gas before you leave, and then switch over to 12 volt just for when you're driving. Okay. The other option, the mains electric, this one here will also give us a fault code and start flashing. because the hookup's not plugged in. But this option you can use to get the fridge cold. So the gas and the mains electric are equally good, really, at getting the fridge cold. And it will take a good sort of 3 or 4 hours still to get the fridge cold, but that is the way that motorhome fridges are. So just for example, if you're going to go on holiday tomorrow morning, I might recommend that you go out a good 3 or 4 hours or the night before and either use the mains or the gas to get the fridge cold. And then by the morning when you go to leave, everything will be ready to, it'll be cooled down. Okay. Alternatively, as I said, you can use the automatic option and it will choose one of the 3 options for you by itself. Press and hold here to turn the fridge off. And that's it. Nice and easy. In the back, we've got another TV with all the relevant sockets over here on the right hand side. So you've got a 12-volt socket, main socket, and an aerial point. Storage all the way around at the top, at the back of the van here as well. So just storage everywhere you look, to be honest, in this vehicle. And the only other thing that I need to point out is this little switch down here. So we've got another little lights button here, which you can turn all of the random lights around the vehicle on and off from here. Well, not random, but different areas. And then we've got your tank heater. So if you want to use a tank heater, it just basically stops the water in the tank from freezing up. So if you're in seriously cold temperatures, you can leave that little switch on just there to stop it from freezing up. Just a very small little submersible heater. So that's about it, really. Just sort of thinking, is there anything else that I've missed? I don't think so. So if there is anything I've missed or anything you want going over again, just give us a shout. But otherwise, we look forward to seeing you soon. Thanks very much.